In 1898, an American city was overthrown. Its elected officials were forced out at gunpoint. Its black leaders were hunted into exile. Its newspaper was burned to the ground. The perpetrators were celebrated. And for more than a century, most Americans never learned it happened. This is the story of how media didn't just report history, it engineered it. When we hear the word coup, we think of distant nations and collapsing democracies. But on November 10, 1898, Wilmington, North Carolina, became the site of the only successful coup d'etat in United States history. It wasn't spontaneous, it wasn't chaotic, it was planned, step by step, using newspapers, political speeches, and armed intimidation. At the end of Reconstruction, Wilmington was one of the most prosperous cities in the South. It had a majority black population. Black citizens owned businesses, worked as professionals, and held positions in local government. A black-owned newspaper, the Daily Record, gave voice to the community. And politically, something unprecedented was happening. Wilmington was governed by a coalition known as the Fusion Party, black Republicans and white populists working together. They promoted expanded voting rights and economic reforms. For wealthy white Democrats who had once dominated state politics, this alliance was dangerous, not because it was corrupt, but because it worked, and it threatened their control. The campaign to retake North Carolina was led by Democratic strategist Furnifold Simmons. His formula was chillingly clear: men who could write, men who could speak, and men who could ride. Writers would shape the narrative. Speakers would inflame emotions. Riders would enforce the outcome. It was a coordinated information and intimidation campaign. Newspapers across the state began publishing relentless warnings of Negro domination. They exaggerated stories. They fabricated threats. They stoked racial panic. Cartoons dehumanized black officials. Editorials warned that white civilization was under siege. The repetition was constant, and repetition turns fear into belief. Democratic operatives traveled from town to town delivering fiery speeches. Crowds were told their families were in danger, that white women were threatened, that order must be restored. Politics became theater. Outrage became performance. And the audience began to internalize the script. Then came the riders. Paramilitary groups known as the Red Shirts patrolled black neighborhoods on horseback. They disrupted rallies. They carried weapons openly. Their presence was psychological warfare. The message was simple: vote the wrong way and face consequences. In November 1898, Democrats regained statewide offices. But Wilmington's local government remained in Fusion hands. For the architects of this campaign, partial victory was unacceptable. They had inflamed public opinion to a fever pitch. Now they intended to finish what they started. On the morning of November 10th, hundreds of armed white men gathered. Their first target was the Daily Record. They burned it to the ground. The alternative narrative silenced. Then they marched to City Hall. Elected officials were forced to resign at gunpoint. The government was overthrown in a single day. Black leaders were hunted. Many were forced to flee the city permanently. Estimates suggest dozens, possibly more, black residents were killed. The exact number remains debated, but the purpose was unmistakable. Terror was not collateral damage. It was the mechanism of control. After seizing Wilmington, Democrats moved swiftly. They rewrote the state constitution. Poll taxes and literacy tests followed. Black voter turnout collapsed. What began as media propaganda ended as systemic disenfranchisement. The coup didn't just change a city. It reshaped a state for generations. But perhaps the most lasting victory came in language. Newspapers and textbooks described the event as a race riot, a spontaneous eruption, not a coordinated overthrow. Words matter. By reframing the event, responsibility blurred, and memory faded. For nearly 100 years, the Wilmington Coup was minimized or omitted from mainstream education. Only in 2006 did a North Carolina commission formally recognize it as a coup d'etat. By then, the damage, political, economic, and historical, had long been cemented. The victors didn't just seize power. They controlled the record. The Wilmington Coup was not only a story of racial violence, it was a masterclass in public opinion engineering. Control the narrative, inflame the public, legitimize force, rewrite history. If media could orchestrate a coup in 1898 and erase it for a century, what might it be capable of today? History doesn't just tell us what happened. It warns us what is possible.